Hello, Petal. Thank you all for being so kind. You really are the best group of people I could possibly wish for, and it makes it all worthwhile. I know I always ask if you can hit the like button or hit that notifications bell or share or even if you'd like to subscribe. But we have such a great little group of people and you're so understanding, and I cannot tell you just how much I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm honestly overwhelmed. You really are the nicest group of people and I love the very bones of you. You're amazing. But, so, as you can hear, I'm a little bit croaky, but got more energy today, so we're going to try and do this thing. And as I said, if I don't get all the way through, I'll do at least half for you. And then we'll do another one tomorrow if we can, hopefully. We got this thing. Woo! Right, so The Better Mousetrap, J.W. Wells & Co. Book 5 by the amazing, the wonderful, the absolutely fantastic Tom Holt. We are now at chapter 13 and things are getting a little bit lively, are they not? And where is the puppy? Where is he? Where is he then? Where is he? I've read the book so I know, but just for that wonderful air of mystery, is there a character we've not heard much about for a few chapters? Is there a little puppy we've not heard about much for a few chapters? How are they connected? But let's carry on. Chapter 13. Amelia Carrington was waiting for the phone to ring. To pass the time and take her mind off her own impatience, she flicked through the latest edition of the New Magical Express. Researchers in Thailand, she read, were claiming to have proved the existence of a hitherto unknown number, somewhere between 1 and 10. The new number, an integer of course, not a mere fraction, had so far only been detected as an otherwise inexplicable blip in extrapolated series of intervals, and until it could be properly identified and its value exactly calculated, it was too early to say what practical effect this discovery would have on the day-to-day business of magic. Amelia raised an eyebrow at that, and made a note on a scrap of paper to have someone look into the possibility of patenting the new number before it passed into the public domain, getting royalties every time someone added up a shopping list or a dart score appealed to her enormously, but not if the cost of enforcing the patent was likely to outweigh the returns. Look what had happened to Schreiber and Deeks and Estates when they tried to copyright Thursday. The phone buzzed. She lunged at it and barked, "Yes?" Not the call she'd been expecting. Amelia scowled, then said, "All right, send her in." A few seconds later, a slim, blonde woman with huge eyes and an exaggerated bust walked through the door and perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, like a blue tit on a bird table. "Sarah," Amelia said, "what's so important? You had to see me right away." A sentient life form would have shriveled up, but Sarah wasn't a life form. Once long ago, she'd been one of Amelia's substantial collection of Barbies, the first, in fact, that Amelia had been able to bring to life for more than 10 minutes. A simple augmentation charm to bring her up to normal human size, a course of accelerated memory implants, and 3 years at Harvard Business School, which it fitted in perfectly, and Sarah was now one of Amelia's most trustworthy and efficient assistants, and she didn't mind holding still while Amelia styled her hair for her either. "The bauxite project?" "Oh, yes." Sarah looked grave. She couldn't actually adjust her facial expression, which was set forever in the sweet, simpering smile she'd been moulded with, but she'd learned to compensate with body language. "Dennis Tanner," she said. "He's trying to double-cross you." Amelia smiled. "Is he really?" Nod. Sarah had to be careful about that, because her head had a tendency to come off under stress. "He's been snooping around behind our backs, buying up mineral rights. We don't know where the money's coming from, though we're guessing it's his goblin relations. At any rate, he's got hold of the rights to all the lands surrounding our original stake, so if the strike's as big as we think it is—" "Oh, easily," Amelia yawned. "Huge." Slight tilt of the head to express puzzlement. "In that case, he's got her screwed. It's not just the bauxite and what's now his land. There's other issues. Access, water, power cables. Basically, he can stop us dead in our tracks." Sarah paused. Cue reaction. which didn't come. "I thought you ought to know," she concluded. "I thought you'd be—" Amelia giggled. "It's all right," she said. "All going according to plan. Listen, has he put together a proper consortium, or is it all just handshakes and gentle goblins' agreements?" "I'm not sure. I can find out." "Yes, please, quick as you like, and when you know who we should be talking to, offer to sell them our stake." Sarah predated the quantum leap in Barbie technology that made it possible for the eyelids to go up and down, but Amelia had had her retro-engineered at great expense. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Be subtle about it, of course. Use intermediaries so it's not obvious that we're giving in. Make it look like we're being double-crossed by our venture partners. Something like that. We've got to be a bit careful or we'll scare him off." "I see. Barbies don't lie very well. How much do we want for it?" Amelia beamed. "Lots," she said. "Say 3 times what it's worth. It doesn't actually matter, but if we make him pay through the nose, it'll stop him getting too suspicious." She frowned slightly. "I do hope you're right, and it's the goblins who are financing him. Goblins can be very direct when they're upset with someone, especially when money's involved." Shrug. "Of course, I'll get on it straight away." "I know you will," Amelia said fondly. "You're a treasure. Oh, and there's a dozen new pairs of shoes for you to try on down in reception." Sarah nodded and stood up. "Colin Gomez wants a word as soon as you're free," she said. "He left a message on your voicemail late last night. Didn't say what it was about." Amelia grinned. "I can guess," she said. "All right, thank you." Sarah left, and then the phone rang. This time, it was the call. Amelia gave them her orders, telling them to coordinate with Sarah about timing. "Whatever you do," she emphasized, "don't let it go before she's sold the land to the Tanners. Yes, of course you don't understand, but she does. All right? Fine." She put the receiver back carefully, as if afraid of waking it up, then sat back in her chair and breathed deeply. It was, she decided, a wonderful world, a world full of opportunities, a world that needed bauxite and would very soon find itself paying a lot more for it than it was used to. Her kind of planet, basically. Assuming that Colin Gomez had finally done as he was told, a smile flickered briefly, and she picked up the phone. "Colin?"
It's you."
His voice was oddly high and strained.
"Sorry, of course it is. Yes, all done."
"You've killed her, then?"
"Yes."
"Get in here." Short delay, during which Amelia amused herself with the new Magical Express crossword. Shape-shifting magic of Julia Roberts, 6 letters beginning with G. Yawn. Too easy. Then Colin came in and flumped down in the spare chair like a sack of worry potatoes. "With you in a moment." "Oh." Colin looked up at her. "What? It doesn't fit. There's too many letters. Oh, of course, it's the American edition." She smiled at him. "Why can't Americans spell?" she said. "Never mind. You've killed her at last. Good." He nodded.
"It took some doing," he said. "I found out why she kept on not staying dead."
Amelia frowned slightly. "Really?"
"Yes, indeed."
She waited, but Colin just sat there, looking like a fish. "Well, how was she doing it?"
"It wasn't actually her," Colin replied. "She had help, and you'll never guess."
"Get on with it." Colin dabbed a tiny trickle of sweat off the shiny slopes of her forehead.
"It was the insurance people, actually," he said. "Because we've got her insured against death in service, like all the junior staff."
"Have we?" Amelia frowned. "Yes, I suppose we have. What's that got to do with anything?"
"Well,"
not his usual chatty hard to make him shut up self, more running in fits and starts, like a Land Rover engine.
"The insurance people didn't want to pay out on the claim."
"Don't take any rubbish from them," Amelia said sharply.
No, of course not. But apparently they've hit on a way of not coughing up. They make it so the accident giving rise to the claim never happened.
Amelia frowned. That's impossible. For some reason, Colin took a deep breath.
Not, he said, if they've got a portable door.
The same thought crossed both their minds simultaneously. Amelia Carrington should have been an actress. A what?
The Acme portable door,
Colin said.
I'm sure you must have heard of it.
What? Oh, that? But it doesn't exist, surely. It's a thingamy, an urban myth.
So that's what this has all been about, Colin thought. I was right. Apparently it does, Colin said, and the idiots at the insurance company got hold of it. Well, not personally. They hired the man who'd got it as a freelance, and when Spitzer had her accident falling out of the tree...
He made it not happen, I see. How annoying.
Quite.
But I told you to use the better mousetrap.
I did. Apparently the door beats the mousetrap.
Heavens! Well, that's that explained. Anyhow, and the door person saved her again? From the spiders?
Yes. And the next time too. I used dragon's teeth.
This time there was no artifice about Amelia's surprise. Dragon's teeth? Have you any idea what those things caused? Colin couldn't help colouring with shame.
You did say get the job done, any means necessary, so I thought...
Yes, well, never mind about that now. Pause while the penny dropped. And they didn't work either?
No.
Extraordinary. So what did you do? Colin ran a finger around his shirt collar.
I realised it had to be the door,
he said uncomfortably.
Nothing else could explain it. Once I'd figured that out, of course, it was easy.
Was it?
Oh, yes. I rang Spitzer and told her I knew about the door and I was thoroughly fed up with you because you'd made me try and kill her and I was plotting to get rid of you.
Really?
It was the only way to get at her, I thought, Colin said. I promised that when you were gone and I was senior partner, I'd give her a partnership too.
A moment of extremely eloquent silence. I see. She accepted?
Oh yes, seemed thrilled at the prospect, so I told her that I'd need the use of the door if I was going to have any chance of killing you. She wasn't happy about that, but I insisted.
Well, of course. Colin nodded.
I arranged a meeting, me, her and the door person, and when they arrived, I killed them.
Amelia hadn't realised she'd been holding her breath. Excellent!
And I got rid of the door as well.
Time stopped. It was a quite unintentional reflex on Amelia's part, triggered by a combination of shock and fury such as she'd never felt before. Luckily, she realised what she was doing and stopped it before any damage was done, although a lot of scientists subsequently wasted a great deal of time and effort taking their very expensive equipment to bits to see what had gone wrong. You did what? She said quietly.
Got rid of it,
Colin repeated.
Well, naturally the thing's an absolute menace. When you think what an untrained amateur managed to get his hands on it was actually using it on a daily basis, it's a miracle we're all still here, so I burned it.
You... Colin nodded briskly.
Put a match to it. All gone. Made the world safe for civilization as we know it, if you care to look at it from that angle.
He's lying, Amelia's brain shrieked. Even Colin Gomez couldn't be that colossally stupid, in which case... But was he lying? As she looked at him, Amelia couldn't be sure. The horrible part of it was he was actually capable of doing something like that. Basically, she knew, deep down, Colin Gomez was, well, not an idealist. He had his faults, but nothing quite as bad as that. Deep down, he was a nice man. He was able to function in business because the little seed of niceness had been overlaid with innumerable layers of obedience, ambition, and corporate mentality, making it possible for him to double-think himself into doing practically anything provided his superiors in the chain of command told him to. But in the absence of a relevant direct order, don't destroy the portable door, for instance, there was always a danger that his inner niceness might assert itself and take over. And a nice man would realise how dangerous the door was, just as a nice man, happening to find a nuclear warhead in the street, wouldn't immediately start opening negotiations with a well-funded terrorist group, even though he'd be well aware of how much money they'd give for one. A nice man would hand it in at his local police station, which, in this instance, would be me, surely. Amelia thought. You burned it, she repeated.
Yes.
It didn't occur to you to bring it to me?
No, I knew you'd want it disposed of as quickly as possible in case something happened and it fell into the wrong hands.
Silent as a card-house folding, 3/4 of her grand plan evaporated. All that work, effort, time, and expense of spirit, but Amelia rose to the occasion very well. A lesser woman would have wasted yet more time and emotion cursing herself for not telling Colin from the outset that getting hold of the door was the main objective of the project, because she hadn't trusted him not to keep it for himself, which was the bitter irony of the thing, because clearly she could have trusted him. That was obvious, now that it was too late, because if Colin had taken the door for his own, he wouldn't be there in her office, and quite probably neither would she. Well, too late to do anything about it now. One had to be businesslike, and cutting losses was one of the pillars of commercial wisdom. She wouldn't even have Colin killed, because what good would that do? She'd only have to find someone else to do his job, and he was quite good at it. She made an effort, like a snake shedding its skin, and shrugged off the fury and the despair. "Quite right," Amelia said. "Well done. Get on to the agency and find someone to replace Spitzer. In the meantime, get Atkinson down from Manchester office to cover her workload." She gave Colin a bright, brittle smile. "I think that's all for now," she said. "See you at the partners' meeting on Friday." Colin stirred, but didn't get up.
Just one thing," he said. The Spitzer girl. Just out of interest, why did we kill her?"
"We," Amelia noted. There you had it. The perfect synthesis of corporate and nice. "Oh, it's complicated. All to do with a little deal I'm putting together. Nothing in your line."
He stood up. "Well, I hope it works out, whatever it is. I'd better be getting on. I've got clients coming in."
When he'd gone, Amelia counted up to 20 and screamed. It wasn't like her, but then again, neither was failure. And it was her own silly fault, of course, keeping Colin in the dark. Assuming he'd been telling the truth, she pursed her lips. Since he hadn't already assassinated her, what would he have to gain by pretending to have burnt the door? Nothing sprang to mind. Even so, she picked up the phone. "Erskine." Gosh. Silence. Then,
"Is that really you?"
"Stop babbling and get in here now." He must have run all the way. Amelia hardly had time to fill in 4 across before he was there, shiny-eyed and trembling slightly. "Erskine," she said, carelessly forgetting to tell him to sit down. "A little job for you. Several, actually." "Golly, thanks. First," she went on, "I want you to search Colin Gomez's office from top to bottom. He'll be seeing clients, so he'll be out of the way." "Right, yes, certainly, of course. What am I looking for?" Amelia described the door. No point telling him what it was. "And when you've done that," she said, "I want you to clear Emily Spitzer's stuff out of her office and put it in store. She's dead." "Okay. And then," she went on, it was slightly wearing to be gazed at with such devoted intensity, "you might as well move your stuff in there." Thanks ever so much." Sigh. "You will be looking after her work until John Atkinson gets here from Manchester. Do you know John?" "No, don't suppose you do. Anyhow, I've just hold the fort until he gets here. Can you manage that?"
"I'll do my very best."
"Yes, of course you will. Now, was there anything else? Oh yes, the cardboard tube thing might just be in with Emily Spitzer's stuff. Keep an eye open for it, and if you find it, bring it here immediately. Don't stop to ring first, just get yourself in here, understood?" "Perfectly." "That's all then." Amelia looked at him. He'd have to do. "For now," she added. "Right, on your way." Busy. No sooner was Erskine out of the door than Sarah called in to say that she'd arranged the sale of the bauxite stake. She'd done well, too. A small enough consolation, now that the portable door had apparently slipped through her fingers, but every little bit helped. Look after the billions, and the trillions will look after themselves. More to the point, though, Amelia dialed a number, tapping her fingers impatiently on the desk until she got an answer. "It's me," she said. "You can let it go now." The dragon woke up. It had no idea where it was or how it had got there. Since it was awake, however, its new surroundings hardly registered. It moved its head painfully on a cricked neck, following the scent of roast pork until it located a heap of freshly cooked pig carcasses. It ate 5 and felt better. "Not hungry," it noted with satisfaction. "Go to sleep now." It wriggled, but the surface under its belly felt strange. It wasn't the cold, smooth feel of its usual bedding. Not good. It was lying on stones. It shifted, preparing to move, then intuited better of it. Stones, yes, but nice stones. Being a dragon, it could carry out with a brush of its belly scales a valuation more accurate and detailed than anything a trained mineralogist could do with a fully equipped lab and a staff of 20. "Nice stones, worth lots. Can sleep now." Its nose touched its curled-up tail, and it slid into the intersecting matrices of its dreams. Bauxite, it told itself, currently quoted in New York at 17.2 in Lisbon, 17.6 in Sydney and London. Meanwhile, the innate sensors in its hindbrain performed their usual miracle of quantity surveying and reported back a figure which, multiplied by the closing price in Singapore, made it whistle the melting point of iron. Blessed are the pure in heart, apparently, for they shall see God. Nobody had ever seen fit to tell Erskine this, since it wasn't immediately relevant to his duties. But he'd sort of figured it out for himself, from first principles. Because he'd been good, he'd been chosen by her for a special mission of great importance. The glow of pride charged him up like an electric current. Mr. Gomez's room. Normally, he wouldn't have dared trespass on a partner's carpet, but a mandate from the highest possible authority made all the difference. First, the desk. Erskine had been designed to be methodical. First, he took a mental photograph, noting the exact position of everything. It took some doing, because Mr. Gomez's desk was a perfect example of dynamic chaos, but Erskine had been specially fitted with an enhanced memory. With the picture saved on his internal screen, he took everything off the desk, stacked it neatly on the floor, and put it back again, in the process frisking everything for small cardboard tubes. No result. So he started on the piles of blue, orange, green and buff folders that covered 2/3 of the floor, the way the oceans cover the planet. Any one of the piles could have been artfully arranged to hide a small cardboard tube. As it turned out, they hadn't, and Erskine moved on to the filing cabinet. Nothing in the filing cabinet but files. Nothing in the files but paper. Next, he examined the pockets of the 2 coats that hung behind the door. Mostly they were full of discarded wrappings from extra strong mince rolls. No cardboard tubes. He glanced at his watch. Because the firm charged for its services on a time basis, Mr. Gomez considered it a point of honour to make any interview with clients last at least an hour. That meant Erskine had a minimum of 20 minutes in hand. Enough time to lift the carpet and prise up the floorboards? Possibly, but he'd be pushing it. Well, he'd just have to work faster. First, though, there was the walk-in cupboard. He'd left that till last because it was such an obvious place for hiding stuff. He opened the door, then took a step back. "Oh," said Emily Spitzer. "It's you." "Hello," Erskine replied. "And it's Mr. Arkenstone from the Salt Lake City office, isn't it?" "What?" "Shh." "Yes, Mr. Arkenstone." Emily looked disconcerted, but also unusually scruffy. Her clothes were a little bit rumpled, and her lipstick was smudged. "From Salt Lake City. I expect you're wondering what we're doing in Mr. Gomez's cupboard." "Looking for files, presumably," Erskine replied. "That's right. Yes, Mr. Arkenstone needed a file, and I said I'd help him find it." "I thought so," Erskine said. "Sorry to have disturbed you, only I didn't know you were in there. I'd have knocked if I'd have known." "Yes, of course you would. Can I help you look?" What? No thanks, it's fine. We can manage.
Right, you are. Erskine hesitated. Only, I'm supposed to search the cupboard for a small cardboard tube. You haven't seen one in there, have you?
A what?
Small cardboard tube, Erskine repeated. About so long, with a bit of old plastic sheet inside, though I'm not to touch that. It won't take me 2 minutes, and I can be looking for your file while I'm at it. Who told you to look for a cardboard tube? Asked Mr. Arkenstone. He didn't have an American accent, which was odd if he was from Salt Lake City. Maybe he'd been posted there as part of a management restructuring initiative. Miss Carrington, Erskine replied, trying not to sound too smug about it, but he couldn't resist adding, personally. The name had the effect he'd expected. Mr. Arkenstone looked properly impressed, and even Ms. Spitzer raised an eyebrow. And I don't want to have to hurry you or anything, but Mr. Gomez will be back quite soon, and he's not supposed to know I'm here. Mr. Arkenstone stood back out of Erskine's way. You go ahead, he said. We'll, carry on looking for our file when you've finished. Are you sure? I mean, I can easily keep an eye out for it while I'm looking for the tube.
Ms. Spitzer gave Erskine a conspiratorial glance. He was thrilled. He'd never had one before. Need to know, she said in a loud whisper. You understand? Oh, of course. Erskine nodded 7 times. Quite. What file, eh?
Absolutely. You crack on, Mr. Arkenstone added kindly. Don't mind us. We've got all the time in the world.
There was something in what he'd said that made Ms. Spitzer giggle, though she managed to do it with a straight face. Thanks, Erskine said. After all, we're on the same side, aren't we? Mr. Arkenstone nodded gravely. Ms. Spitzer must have got a frog in her throat or something, because she made a little gurgling noise, but not unkindly. In fact, Erskine reflected as he rummaged carefully through the cupboard. No tube, or well, she was being a good deal nicer to him now than she'd ever been before. It could only be because he'd been blessed with her special favour. Would it go on like this from now on, he wondered. He hoped so. And then he froze. Erskine's first instinct was to hate himself for being so careless. The excitement of it all had got the better of him, and he'd forgotten something that she had said to him. I want you to clear Emily Spitzer's stuff out of her office and put it in the store. She's dead. Erskine thought about that. True, the Emily Spitzer with whom he'd just had that extremely pleasant conversation hadn't seemed all that dead to him, but then who was he to judge? If she said Miss Spitzer had passed away, which of them was more likely to be right, the creator or the unworthy result of her labours? But, replied his inner common sense, Miss Spitzer really didn't look terribly dead at all, in which case maybe it was possible that whoever had told her about Miss Spitzer's demise had been lying, in which case she really ought to be told right away. Twin forces of incalculable ferocity were tearing Erskine apart. The imperative of letting her know, just in case someone was trying to deceive her, and a horrified fear for wasting her time and getting into trouble. For a full 10 seconds he stood quite still, not even breathing, as his wretched mind was bounced backwards and forwards like a tennis ball. His first solo mission, and here he was, messing it up, because whichever course of action he took, it'd be bound to be the wrong one. But that wasn't the worst of all, even. She had also told him to search Ms. Spitzer's things for the tube. If it wasn't in Mr. Gomez's room and he'd just gone and mentioned to her that he was looking for it, what if she wasn't supposed to have it, in which case he'd just tipped her off that it had been missed and was being searched for? What a terrible, terrible mess. Nothing for it. He was going to have to tell her at once. Very carefully, Erskine opened the cupboard door and looked out. What he saw made him whimper. The room was empty. Ms. Spitzer and that nice Mr. Arkenstone from Salt Lake City office weren't there any more. Who the hell, Frank asked as they slammed through a fire door, was that? Erskine, Emily told him. Long story. In here. In here proved to be a small, dusty room, crammed with angle iron racks filled with dusty files. She closed the door and listened, presumably for sounds of pursuit. There couldn't have been any, because she came away and sat down on the floor. looking exhausted. The new kid, she went on, trainee, supposed to be going round with me, learning pest control. Coals to Newcastle, she added bitterly. Though there's something a bit bloody odd about him. I've only just figured it out, and it's pretty strange. Frank looked at her. Well? I can't hear him. Emily frowned, then shook her head. No, that's putting it badly. Look, I told you about the troll's blood, right? Well, when Erskine says something, that's all I hear. Just the words he says out loud. No little voice in my head telling what he's really thinking. And before you ask, she added, that's downright weird. Is it? Believe me, yes. She pulled a bewildered face. You, Colin Gomez, Emma on reception, everyone I've talked to since it happened. But now I come to think of it, not Erskine, which, she added quietly, can mean only one thing. He's not human. Frank pursed his lips. He's a management trainee, right? Yes. Well then. Emily frowned. Good point, she said. But no, I don't think so. It's like listening to, I don't know, an insect or something. No, she added impatiently. It's not even that. It's like he's not even real. Frank considered that. You think he's like that whatever it was in Mr. Sprague's office, he said. The one that turned out to be a hare. Oh, God, Emily said. No, I wasn't thinking that, actually. But you could well be right. Something inanimate that she's brought to life. Frank mumbled. Like I said, management trainee, under his breath, but not out loud. All right, he said. If that's true, so what? It's no skin off our noses, is it? The look Emily gave him started off various trains of thought in his mind. One of them was that if they really had found true love and were going to spend the rest of their lives together, inevitably there were going to be a lot more looks like that, and he might as well get used to them. He knows I'm alive, she said. Stupid, she didn't add. And Colin Gomez has just told the Carrington bitch that he killed me. Oh, I see, Frank said quickly. You mean everything's screwed up? Sort of. Ah. Like, she went on, bang goes our chance of sneaking up on her quietly. She'll know that Colin's lied to her, which means curtains for his palace coup idea. Probably for Colin too, though I can't say the thought upsets me terribly much. Frank frowned. You don't really mean that. Yes, I do. All right, fine. Another look, but he wasn't unduly concerned. Close observation of his partner's relationship had led them to the conclusion that an unshakable belief on the female's part that the male is an idiot is a fundamental ingredient of true love. Odd, he'd always thought, but presumably there was a sound evolutionary reason for it. He tried to kill me, for God's sake, Emily said. Maybe a tad defensively. And besides, he's a jerk. Quite. Insufferable bloody man. So inconsiderate. Well, there you go. Right, she scowled. No, we can't just let her kill him. Bloody nuisance, she snarled. As if we haven't got enough to do. The miracle of Charles' blood was something that Frank couldn't really get his head around, though he believed in it. But maybe it wasn't such a miracle after all, because as Emily spoke, he could hear her thinking, and besides, he's promised to make me a partner. Perhaps at some deep level, he was mildly shocked. If so, he overrode the reaction. She might be the most wonderful person in the world and the meaning of his universe, but she was still corporate. They think differently from the rest of us. Okay, he said. We'll add saving Colin Gomez to the list then. She shrugged. Well, it's only fair. You save your Mr. Sprague, I'll save Colin, assuming, she went on, we both live that long. Come on, we've got to get out of here before bloody Erskine tells her I'm alive. Typical Colin Gomez, she sighed bitterly. Should have known better than to get involved in any scheme he's responsible for. Get the door and let's be on our way. Frank took the cardboard tube from his pocket and teased the door out with his fingertips. Where to? He asked. What? Oh, anywhere. No, hang on, let me think. Emily turned her back on him for a moment while he plastered the door onto the nearest wall. She was thinking, I know precisely where we should go. Back in time to the day Amelia Carrington was born. Oh, no, I couldn't kill a baby. It'd be impossible, spiders or no spiders. All right, 9 months earlier we could kidnap her dad or something, and then it wouldn't really be killing, except, of course, that it would. The sad fact is, she admitted to herself, blaming the excessive honesty on the troll's blood, but it wasn't really that. Doesn't matter whether we do it here and now or 30 years ago or before she was even born. It's still basically the same thing, and killing dragons is one thing, but people. And besides, she added, if there's no Amelia Carrington, there'd be no Carringtons, and I won't get my partnership. Maybe that one was troll's blood. Even so, Emily really wished it hadn't got into her system. You could mess it up a bit with logic and say that if you made it so that Carringtons never happened, you'd be undoing all the good they'd done in the world, all the bank vaults they'd disinfested, all the spiders they'd squashed. That might be true, but it wasn't what was motivating her. Simple facts. She wanted her partnership, but she didn't want to have to kill anybody, even that bitch, in order to get it. She wanted... True love should have made that an easy sentence to complete, but it didn't. Yes, all right, she wanted true love, and it was standing by the wall right now looking mildly sheepish with an I don't want to rush you, but it's time we made a move expression on its face. Fine, but she wanted the partnership and the clear conscience as well. Picky, but there you go. Well, what we need to know, Emily said firmly, is what the Carrington woman's up to. Otherwise we're just chasing our tails.
Agreed,
Frank nodded.
So how do we find that out?
Sigh. I don't know. I mean, we can be fairly sure that she wanted to get hold of the door once she'd figured out it was out there and on the loose, which basically means ever since you saved me from the apple tree, she'd have guessed it had to be the door, since nothing else could have beaten the better mousetrap that Colin used to get rid of me. But that still raises the question of why she had Colin set the mousetrap for me in the first place. I mean, what harm did I ever do to her? If she wanted to get rid of me, why not just fire me? Frank frowned.
Didn't want to pay any redundancy money.
Emily thought about that. Wouldn't put it past her, she replied. But that's not our way in the Magic Biz. We're sort of above all that kind of thing. There has to be another reason. Something special about me. She broke off. And there's nothing special about me, is there?
Well,
no, she said quickly. There isn't. I'm just an employee. In fact, I'm amazed that she even knew I existed. But there's got to be something about me that'll cause her real problems, get in the way of a big deal or whatever. She shook her head. Well, she said, that's what we've got to find out. And since we can't puzzle it out for ourselves from first principles, we're just going to have to ask someone.
Great. Who'd know the answer?
Well, she would, obviously, but apart from her, Emily scowled. Nobody, she said. That's the way she does things.
And you don't feel like asking her?
Not really, no. Frank waited for Emily to say something. He was hoping for a short but powerful speech about how none of this stuff really mattered now they had each other, and the door, of course, how they could simply turn their backs on this whole mess, go somewhere and somewhen. Amelia Carrington couldn't follow them, and just be happy. Not having the unfair advantage of troll's blood, he couldn't be sure that that was what she was thinking. But he was quietly confident, nevertheless. After all, it was what he was thinking, and if they saw the world so differently, how come they were in love? So he waited, thinking, no hurry. She'll say it in a moment or so. She's probably just trying to think of the right words. He waited. But, she said, if that's what it takes, we'll bloody well have to ask her.
Oh.
What?
Nothing. Define true love, Frank thought. Specify the levels of love required in order for it to qualify as true, but later, not now.
We can use the door, Emily was saying. If we zoom straight into her office and we're sharp enough about it, we can hit her over the head or something before she's got a chance to do anything horrible to us, and then we can ask her and...
Sorry.
What? Frank took 2 steps away from the door.
You carry on, he said. Look, you don't need me. I'll probably just be in the way. You hang on to the door. Let me have it back when you've finished with it. I'll just sort of go away now.
He started to move, but she grabbed his arm. You're scared, she said. He looked at her.
You should know, he said. You're the bloody telepath.
Emily let go of his sleeve. What's the matter? She said. Don't you want to help me?
Of course. You can have the door. You don't need me.
Look.
No, you look.
Frank hadn't intended to sound angry.
More to the point, you listen.
He took another step, then paused.
You can hear what I'm really saying, right? Fine. That's a great gift. Always assuming that you're listening. But I don't think you are, actually. I think you've got more important things on your mind right now. So fine. You carry on.
Frank, she's been trying to kill me. He closed his eyes.
Yes, he said. And that's really bad. She's tried to kill you. For all I know, she's killed my friend George. And you reckon she's up to some evil master plan. Whatever. But we're lucky. We don't have to hang around here and be involved. We can piss off through the door, go anywhere, do anything. We don't have to stay here and have adventures. Not, he added bitterly, unless we want it. And I don't, all right?
No, it's not all right. Emily's eyes were bright with anger. Oh, I know what you want. You want us to float away into our own little private universe where we can be happy ever after, just gazing into each other's eyes, just like... She heard herself add, as the theatre flowed undigested from his mind into her mouth. Just like your rotten mum and dad. You think that's what being in love means? Just the two of us, forever, and a wall of magic to keep the nasty world out?
Well, yes, actually.
Then you're wrong. And so were your stupid parents. They didn't run away because they were in love. They ran away because they couldn't cope. But I'm not them. I can cope. I don't want to live in a bubble. Thanks all the bloody same. I want...
You want to be a partner before you're 30.
Well, Emily thought, I was the one who raised the subject of bubbles, and now the bubble I've been living in has just gone pop, because he's right. That's what I want, and not just a partner, but a partner in Carrington's, even though it's a nasty, vicious collection of arse-lickers and psychotics who all ought to be put down in the interest of public safety, but that's what I want. Wanted. You make it sound silly, she said. Frank shook his head.
Far be it from me to judge, he said. I mean, I never wanted anything till a few days ago, so I'm in no position to make fun of anybody. All I'm saying is, if that's what you really want, you go ahead and get it, and feel free to use the door if you think it'll help. And then, he added, not looking at her, when you've got what you want, and that's out of the way, maybe you'll decide you want something else as well.
In a bubble?
He shrugged. Not necessarily. I don't know how much about these things. Maybe the bubble isn't actually mandatory. But to be honest with you, I can't see how it would work out without one. And he thought, my God, here we are having a serious talk about our relationship, just like they do on the afternoon soaps. Never thought I'd find myself doing that. Next thing you know, I'll be getting in touch with my inner feelings. Just fancy.
Emily pulled a face that could have curdled milk. I just don't want her to win. That's all. Frank had been about to leave, but he stopped. There was, after all, a grain of truth in that. Only a grain, but enough for a hard-working oyster to build a pearl around. He turned back and looked her in the eyes.
Are you really dead set on being a partner? He said.
Yes.
Fine. Why?
Excellent question. One she'd never stopped to ask herself. Of course she knew the answer right away. Because it's there, she said, at which he nodded.
Good a reason as any, he said.
And because they don't want me to. And so, if I make it, I've won. Emily frowned, playing back the simultaneous translation in her head. The two voices merged into one. Bloody hell, she said. That sounds really silly.
Frank shrugged. People who live in bubbles shouldn't play with needles. Actually, he went on, I'm the one who's being silly. I don't think being in love with's a bubble anymore. I think it's more like...
Well...
like this.
Emily thought for a moment. Then she said, You know what? I'm quite glad I met you. Otherwise,
you'd be dead.
Yes, but apart from that...
Oh.
So much for having a serious talk about our relationship. Frank thought about his friend Kevin. Friend. He was the counter clerk at the Wyatumba General Store. He'd spoken to him, 2 times over the years? Who was always having relationships and, inevitably, the concomitant serious talks. It was okay, Kevin told him, once he had mastered the knack of half-listening, taking in just enough of the gist of what she was saying to enable you to make the appropriate grunting noises at regular intervals, while allowing the rest of your mind to drift away and graze on more interesting topics, such as the All Blacks' chances against Oz on Saturday. If you were really organised, you arranged to have the serious talk in the pub, so you could watch the footy on the big TV over a shoulder.
Sorry, Frank said. I seem to have lost track. Where did we just get to?
Emily clicked her tongue at him. I think we just decided that we're each of us as bad as the other, she said. You've got hopelessly woolly-minded romantic ideas about being in love, and I've spent my whole adult life chasing after a partnership for absolutely the wrong reasons. Something like that, anyhow.
Ah, I see. So it's basically a draw.
Yes.
Fine. Now, can we go, please, before this mad senior partner of yours comes along and turns us into frogs?
Of course. Where do we go?
Not again. Anywhere. Vienna. Dar es bloody Salaam. Let's just go.
Frank reached for the handle of the door, but before his fingers connected it started to turn.
Hang on, he thought. Shouldn't be doing that. It's never done that before. What's happening?
And then the door opened.
It's all getting a bit exciting.
We made it through. Woo! Well, who could possibly be at the other side of the door? What will happen? Where will they go? Oof, can't wait. And talking of can't wait, I will do my best to record tomorrow, but no promises. Hopefully so, though, because it's chapter 14 and it's going to be absolutely glorious. So, I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Let me know how your week's been. Have you got any plans for the weekend? Are you looking forward to spring coming in, seeing as summer's starting apparently in a week here in the UK, which is just wrong. Seriously, British summertime starts on 26th of March apparently, when the clocks spring forward, even though America's already had their clocks sprung forward for a couple of weeks now. But I digress. I will stop whiffling. So if you've got this far, if you could possibly hit the like button or the notifications bell, and if you haven't, please subscribe because it really helps the channel. Share if you want to, but if you enjoy the stories and you enjoy the books, you can always leave some feedback or have a little chat with us in the comments section. And big hugs and kisses to all of you, because you've all been so amazing and I really do appreciate you, and I love what we're doing here very, very much. It's so nice that we're all doing this together and we're all in this together. If that doesn't sound wrong, doesn't it? Does it? I'll stop whiffling now. I think that's getting a bit of a trend, the whole whiffling thing. Human voices only, real human voices. This is just how we like it. Yes, yes, indeed. So, if you like audiobooks, please do come back and have a listen. There's plenty of playlists as well. I've got podcasts and all that sort of thing. Check out the podcast list, the playlist list, the list, the content list. God. Okay, big hugs and kisses. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll be back in either tomorrow or in a couple of days. Thanks for listening. Oh, and take it easy, petal. Stay safe.